Howdy folks, welcome to Module 1 of the full CompTIA A+ course. As you can see, this first module of the course is called What Does an IT Specialist Do? For those of you new to the channel or this course is based on the 1200 series version of the course, but you can however also use this version of the course to study for the previous 1100 series version or the 1300 series version when it eventually gets released, since the content, well, is usually about 95% the same between these courses. Now folks, this 1200 series version of the course will once again consist of a Core 1 and a Core 2. We have the 220-1201, now that is also known as the Core 1, as I'm sure you guys know by now. And then, of course, we've got the 220-1202, which is also known as the Core 2. Both of these get fully covered in this course. Now, if you don't know yet, and if you're wondering how many modules this course consists of, well, folks, it consists of 22 modules in total. There will be a dedicated video for each of these 22 modules, and since I'll be covering a whole module in each video, some of these videos will be a bit long, folks. They will usually be about 1 hour long, sometimes 2 hours, depending on the topics in that specific module. At the end of the day, we will be covering everything in each module. So if you're preparing for the official A+ certification exams, you are in the right place, folks. Now, folks, for your convenience, each video will also have timestamps added into the video description. So if you're maybe looking for something specific in a module, or maybe you just want to revise on something specific, like a specific topic, well, the timestamps are there to make your life easier. It takes forever to put those into a video, folks, so by all means, please feel free to use them. And then, folks, at the end of this course playlist, I will also be adding a couple of dedicated custom practice question videos for you guys to test your knowledge on what you've learned in this course, and also to see if you're ready to sit for the official CompTIA A+ exams. Alright folks, let's talk about the agenda for this first module of the course. Each module consists of various sections, and obviously each module will have a different amount of sections. Now today's module consists of only 2 main sections. The first main section we'll be diving into today is called the Hero of Problem Solving. Yes, I kid you not, that's the actual name of that section. The second main section we'll be covering in this module is called the Troubleshooting Methodology. Now this one, folks, is especially important if you're planning on writing the exam. You can expect multiple questions about this in the exam. Anyway, folks, if you haven't done it already, do your homie here a favor and show this video and this channel some love by giving it a like. You will not just be helping me in this video, but you'll also be helping other people that are studying for the A+ exams. By giving this video a like, you'll be getting it in front of more people that actually needs it. People that don't necessarily have money to pay for courses like this. You'll be helping a lot of people out by doing so. And then, of course, if you'd like to know when the next module in this course goes live, or any of my other content for that matter, maybe consider subscribing. Otherwise, you might miss it. Alright, folks, now that we have all of that out of the way, let's go dive into that first section. Alright folks, the name of this first section, in case you folks don't remember, the Hero of Problem Solving. Man, I can't say that with a straight face. I don't know what CompTIA was thinking of that name, but alright, we'll go for it. Now guys, in this first section, the first thing we're going to be talking about is the role of an IT specialist. What exactly does an IT specialist do? Now some of you guys might have a more or less idea, but do you really know? So one of the first things you need to know about an IT specialist, guys, is this could be you, are in charge of managing computer systems. This can be a small computer system, this can be a large computer system. And this small/large concept applies to everything else that I'm about to mention to you guys on this list as well. So when I say a small computer system, this could be a small office, home office environment, which we refer to as a SOHO, S-O-H-O. This could literally just be like 5 or 20 machines. And your job as a technician would be to go and manage those 20 machines. Give the users what they need. So if they need a machine of certain specs, your job would be to give them a machine that meets those specs. Your job would be to make sure these machines are up to date. Your job would be to make sure these machines are secure. Now, managing a computer system, folks, can also be a medium or a large size environment. So this could very well extend to hundreds, if not thousands of computers. So there's going to be many cases, this is the more likely scenario, where you will be one of many technicians managing an environment that consists of hundreds, if not thousands of computers. Now, usually because of how many these computers are, it's simply not feasible for you to go and walk up to every machine and go and do stuff manually. Nope. Instead, in those environments, we have softwares that aid us with that. Now, unfortunately, this course is not about those softwares, but in case you're curious, that will be things like Microsoft Intune. It'll be things like Microsoft's Configuration Manager, just to name a few. You get lots of software out there that allows you as an administrator to manage these devices. You can see what devices people have. You can see the specs of those devices. You can see what operating system they've got installed, build-wise, edition-wise. You can see the software they've got installed, updates and drivers they've got installed. You can see the security they've got on those devices. Now, never mind seeing, folks, you can install or uninstall software updates and drivers. You can go and enforce certain security requirements, like forcing the users to have BitLock or encryption. You can force them to have a strong, long, complicated password. You can force them to, geographically speaking, be in a certain location. It extends well beyond lots of things. But in short, folks, managing a computer system is just you making sure people have what they need in a nutshell. Now, folks, another role of the IT specialist is managing network systems. So that would be installing the physical network cables, installing the network switches, the routers, installing the firewalls, also managing and configuring these routers, switches, and firewalls. It is to go and create things like VLANs, if you know what a VLAN is. If you don't know what a VLAN is, don't stress, that does get covered in the course later on. It is to go and configure subnetting. Also, if you don't know what it is, it gets covered later in the course. So the point here is, it's for you to go and create and establish a physical network and or a digital network in a company environment to maintain that environment. So if something goes wrong, for you to have enough knowledge and skill to be able to troubleshoot that environment. Now, the role of an IT specialist also includes resolving things. Resolving things like computer hardware-related issues or software-related issues. Now, to be able to do this, guys, you need to know and understand the troubleshooting methodology. Something we are going to cover today in this specific module. So stay tuned for that. So the troubleshooting methodology, in a nutshell, is just the steps one would take to go and troubleshoot an issue for yourself or a user. Now, obviously, this issue could be hardware-related or it could be software-related. Now, resolving these issues, you need to have a certain level of experience. It's not just about knowing what the troubleshooting methodology is. You need to have experience. With experience, as soon as a user starts mentioning the symptoms they're experiencing, you already have a fairly good idea of where to start troubleshooting. It's not just going to be a guessing game. Think of this as going to your doctor. Now, when you go to your doctor, guys, and you start mentioning the symptoms you're experiencing, usually because of experience, you'll often see the doctor will already know what's wrong with you. You'll have no idea, but they will already have a very good idea simply because of their experience. They've seen this enough times. They've been around the block a couple of times, if you want to put it like that. And obviously that allows them to identify a problem a lot quicker. It allows them to identify your illness a lot quicker. Just like you will eventually be able to identify the illness that someone's computer is experiencing. Think of yourself as a computer doctor. I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's basically what you guys are going to be one day. You're going to be a computer doctor, and by the users mentioning to you what symptoms their computers are experiencing, due to your experience, you'll often know what the problem is without even testing it. You can already start suggesting a couple of solutions to these guys. It's pretty crazy. Now, the role of an IT specialist, folks, is also establishing computer networks. So, very much the same as managing computer networks. Now, establishing computer networks, never mind installing the physical cables and switches and routers and stuff like that, it's also the digital configuration of networks, never mind VLANs and subnetting. This could literally be for you to go and set up the IP address of a computer. So if you go and set up the IP address of one or more machines or devices, that could be seen as establishing computer networks. This includes, but also extends to things like wireless network, folks. You will from time to time have to go and create what we call wireless networks. You'll have to go and set up the SSIDs. You will have to go and set up the wireless passwords, possibly something like a MAC filter, if you know what MAC filtering is, guys. And then lastly, folks, the role of an IT specialist is to help people, help employees, or to help customers. Now, this sounds very easy on paper, but let me tell you, this is probably going to be one of the hardest parts here. Very often, I've hired employees in my life, guys. It sounds very easy to do that, but often one of the very weirdest things I look for on someone's CV or their resume is to see if they have any experience when it comes to working with customers. This could literally be someone like a waiter or a waitress. Now, that obviously has nothing to do with IT, but what I see is somebody that has worked with difficult users, difficult customers, because we know you're going to get some of those customers that are completely unreasonable, completely rude. They'll be so rude to the waiter or the waitress even though they haven't done anything wrong. Now, obviously, those waiters and waitresses, they've learned to deal with these difficult customers, not to swear at them, not to yell at them, to apologize and say, sorry, sir, we're going to do our best, we're going to see how we can fix this. So that's what I see when I hire someone and they mention on their CV or their resume that they've worked as a waiter or a waitress. Guys, this is just an example, by the way. So I see this as someone that's got experience with working with difficult people. And that's definitely a skill you're going to have when it comes to working in IT. You're going to have users, customers, clients, and employees which are going to be completely crazy, unreasonable, just plain rude of you at times. And all you can do is, well, you can't swear at them, you can't yell at them. All we can do at times is just apologize, even though we know it's not their fault. This might be them just being incompetent, but we can't say that. We can think it, but we can't say that. So, yeah, guys, it's a lot easier said than done. Really it is. Anyway, folks, something else I want to talk to you about, when it comes to IT specialists and what they do, that would be the skills and the abilities that someone would need to have when they want to become an IT specialist. This will be someone like yourself. So what are these skills and abilities? And guys, keep in mind, what I'm showing you on my list today is not everything. These are simply the main ones you need to know for the A+ course and for the A+ exam. So the first one is problem solving. Probably one of the most famous ones and one of the most obvious ones. So for you to be an IT specialist, you need to be able to do some problem solving. You need to be very good at problem solving. And to be able to do that, one of the things we will go and use is the troubleshooting methodology. There I go again mentioning the troubleshooting methodology, something we have not covered yet. It's coming up in the second section of this video, but you will need to know the troubleshooting methodology, and using those guidelines, if we want to call it that, you will be able to go and do troubleshooting, and you will be able to go and do problem solving. You will know what questions to ask the user or the customer or the client. You will know what symptoms to look for. You will know what tools to go and use. You will know where to start looking, what to do, and what not to go and do. Other things you guys need to know with regards to skills and abilities is communication. Now that might sound silly to you guys, but it's not, guys. Communication is a very important skill to have in IT as an IT specialist. It actually includes a lot of things. So communication is for you to tell the customer, the client, or the employee what's going on. Imagine for a moment you are taking your car to the dealership. I know it sounds unrelated, but hear me out. You're taking your car to the dealership. Maybe it's just for a routine service. Now, when you go back later that day to go and fetch your car from the dealership for its routine service, suddenly you get told, oh, we saw your brakes were done, so we changed your brake pads, we changed this and we changed that. Now, isn't that going to tick you off if they go and change and fix all kinds of things without your permission, especially if they start billing you for this? You were planning for a routine service, which, maybe it's under a service plan, you might not even have to pay anything in, but now they go and fix and change all kinds of things, and now they want to bill you for it afterwards. That is just very bad customer service. It's very bad communication. Now, wouldn't it be nice that if the car is on the lift, they phone you and say, dear sir or madam, your car is on the lift as we speak. We see your brake pads are finished. While it's on the lift, would you like us to change the brake pads, or would you like to do this at a later time? And I might say, you know what, bro, I haven't gotten paid yet. I'm only getting paid next week. I don't have the money right now, but thank you for informing me. I'll do it next week. That is good communication skills. Now in IT, it refers back to the same thing. Should you see something wrong on someone's machine, their firewall, their environment, whatever this is, it's a good idea to inform the customer, the client, or the user of what the cheese is going on. I used to work for a company. I'm not going to mention my name because I signed NDAs and all that kinds of stuff. But I used to work for a company, and every day, with all the tickets I had open, I had to go and phone those customers or those companies the next morning. So the next morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, when I'm having my cup of coffee, I had to phone each and every one of these customers and companies to give them an update, whether they want it or not. Some companies didn't care. Some people really appreciate it. So it's just to phone them saying, sir, ma'am, your ticket is still open. I have done the following. I'm going to do the following next. We don't know what the issue is yet, but we suspect it's going to be this. We suspect it's going to take another 2 hours. It's just to give them an update as to what has been done, what are we going to be doing next, and what the expected ETA is. Very important to give companies and customers an update as to what is going on. I mean, wouldn't you like to know what's going on in your machine? Can you imagine you are this user? Put yourself in the shoes of that user. Now there's something wrong with your machine. You send this machine in for repairs, but now you've got no idea how long it's going to take or what they will be doing. Wouldn't it be nice if they phoned you, maybe during the course of the day, saying, hey, listen, sir or ma'am, we have done the following on your machine. It doesn't seem to be the problem. We're going to do the following steps next. This should take us about 2 hours. We suspect your machine is going to be ready in about 2 hours. But if not, we will phone you in 2 hours just to give you another update. Wouldn't that be nice, folks, if you received an update like that? That's exactly the idea here. Communication is key, guys. So if you're working for a company that works for many other companies, that just looks professional, and you are going to get more customers at the end of the day. Professionalism is key here, guys. Now, speaking of professionalism, that brings us to customer service. Now, as you can see, communication and customer service have a lot in common. Also something I would look for on people's CVs. So somebody once again mentioned they were a waiter or a waitress, just using as an example, guys, obviously not limited to that. But if somebody mentions to me on their CV or their resume that they have been a waiter or a waitress, I see that as good customer service. This person has skills when it comes to working with difficult customers. So when you have a customer yelling at you, swearing at you, all you can do is just apologize. So I apologize for the inconvenience you're experiencing. We will get on it. So imagine yourself working in a computer store. It's a normal computer store. This could possibly even be in a mall somewhere, guys. You get a customer or a client that brings in a machine into the mall, into your little store in the mall, and now this machine is broken. Now you fix the machine. Maybe it's perfectly fine now. The next day, they bring back the same machine that you've already fixed. I kid you not. It's gonna happen. And what will often happen is when they bring it back, it'll be the exact same issue. In other words, the user is the problem, not the computer. And they will yell at you. They will swear at you, insult you, of whatever else they can think of here. Now, at the end of the day, you cannot yell at the customer. You can't say, hey, you are the problem, and say all kinds of mean words that I'm not allowed to say here on YouTube. You can't say those things. All we can do is say, sir, ma'am, I apologize for the inconvenience. Let me have a look at it. Now, on that note, guys, unfortunately, you are going to get people that are going to take chances. They will try and get a freebie fix here. So usually when you fix a machine, a little bit of off topic here, we make them sign for it. It's a document that they sign that the machine is working. You show them that it's working. And on this document, it says what was wrong with the machine and what was done to fix the machine. You also make them sign and acknowledge not just that it's working, but that they've seen that it's working. And then if they come back at that machine afterwards and say, oh, it's broken again, or ever since you worked on this laptop, this doesn't work, or that doesn't work, because they will try that stunt with you, then you can pull out that document that says, look here, you've signed and acknowledged that the machine was in a working condition when you received it. You will get those people that's going to try their luck from time to time. Alright, folks, and then the fourth thing I'm going to mention to you guys here is attention to detail. As an IT specialist, you need to have an eye for detail. You need to be able to spot things that the average Joe does not spot. This can be small things, can be big things. Often these will be small things, things that are out of the ordinary. So let me mention an example here. Let's say a user says, my machine does not want to start. Now obviously that can be anything. For a person to say my machine doesn't start, the list is longer than a Christmas list of what it could possibly be. It could be anything. But now they're going to mention a couple of symptoms to you again, and that's obviously now where experience comes in as well. Never mind attention to detail. They might mention that when they start the machine, it starts fine. It runs about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and then it just shuts down on its own, completely randomly. When they try and press the start button again right afterwards, nothing happens. The machine does not want to start. But if they leave it for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so, and they try again, suddenly it magically starts again. And then it just idles for another 10 or 15 minutes, and then it just shuts down on itself. What could this possibly be? Now that, folks, is an overheating issue. Just an example. The machine obviously gets too hot. They've got these safety sensors built into them. And if it gets too hot, to avoid any potential damage, the machine shuts itself down automatically. A lot of cars these days actually have the same sensors built into the engines. If it detects the engine gets too hot, it'll kill the engine. And only after it's cooled down properly enough will it allow you to start the engine again. This is to prevent damage to your engine. And the same can be said about your computer. If it detects that your machine is getting too hot, it doesn't know why it's getting too hot, but if it gets too hot, it's going to shut down the machine automatically, and you will not be able to start it again until the sensor detects that it's cool enough to start the machine safely again. So by the user just telling me all of those things, I already know that it's overheating. That's me paying attention to detail, but it's also a little bit of a mix of, well, experience. So you're going to have to look for small little details. This could be something small on the motherboard, could be small on the network, maybe it's something you have to go and spot in an event log somewhere, but attention to detail will often allow you to solve problems that other people cannot solve, guys. A fifth thing I want to mention to you guys is analytical reasoning. You need to be able to think on your feet here. Do not think like the customer or the user. Think like a technician. Think of the troubleshooting methodology that we mentioned earlier, the one that we're still going to discuss later in this video. So you need to think like a technician. If the customer, for example, mentions, my machine doesn't want to start. Now, once again, that could be anything. But if they mention, my machine does not want to start ever since yesterday afternoon. It was working perfectly fine yesterday, but this morning it doesn't. So now we already know something happened between yesterday afternoon and this morning. Now, using your analytical reasoning, you will be able to think of things like, you know what, maybe it's an update. Let me first go and check if it's not an update. And if you see there was a couple of updates that took place, chances are very likely that one of those updates is the culprit. Or if the user tells you that, yeah, last night there was a storm taking place and that kind of stuff as well, that could also possibly be the cause. For all we know, there was a lightning strike, there was a power surge of sorts somewhere along the power line, and that caused the power supply of your PC to kick the bucket. You know, we never know. So that is analytical thinking, guys. Analytical reasoning. You need to think out of the box here. Have the ability to think out of the box. Think logically of what could have caused something and where to start your troubleshooting. So if the user is unable to tell you anything that's useful, I would start to do obvious things. Start checking all the monitoring things on the machine. Go into Event Viewer. For those of you who don't know what Event Viewer is, it shows you logs of what happened on this machine. Go into Event Viewer if the machine is still able to start. Go and check all the logs of the machine. If the machine is not able to start, maybe go and test each part individually. Start with the power supply because that's normally the most likely culprit. If that doesn't work, change something else and then change the next part and then the next part. So you start in a logical order until you find the culprit. And then another ability or skill, folks, is time management. This is actually a very important skill, not just in IT, but in a lot of careers actually. So time management is very important in a lot of fields. So if you are, for example, an intern, or if you're on some sort of learnership program, and you always show late up for work, that already tells the potential employers a lot about you. It tells them that you're not serious. It tells them that you are not professional, that you don't want this job necessarily. So if you always show up in time for, appointments, for work, for whatever this might be, or even a little bit early, not too early, otherwise you look too eager and it also looks unprofessional. Maybe about 10 minutes early, maybe 15 minutes early. That's not too eager, but also looks professional. So if this is maybe your job, maybe it's a visit you have to go and do at a site or a client, whatever the case might be, don't be late. Be on time, preferably be there 5, 10 minutes or even 15 minutes ahead of time. It looks more professional when you do that. And in the event of you being unable to, meet this obligation, the time you've agreed to, phone your work or phone the client and let them know you're going to be late. So if you are on your way to your client and let's say you get stuck in traffic, there was an accident on the freeway or whatever the case might be, phone the customer, phone the client, tell him, sorry sir, I apologize for the inconvenience, I'm stuck on the freeway, there seems to be an accident here. Can we reschedule? Or is it fine if I'm coming half an hour later because there's an accident on the highway? And often you will find that these people are actually very gracious. If you tell them why you're going to be late, if you tell them, hey, it's an accident on the freeway, then they might actually be fine at that, because that's life, guys. That's something that's completely not within your power. It's something you have got no control over. That's just called life, I guess. And if you tell them things like that, a lot of times they'll be fine if you're coming half an hour or an hour later. At least they can go and do other things then. It's going to be very unprofessional, though, if they expect you there at a certain time, let's say 8 o'clock in the morning, and they wait, and they wait, and they wait. You only rock up half an hour or an hour later. That's very unprofessional. Man, put yourself in that person's shoes. Here you are waiting for someone that's supposed to be there at 8 o'clock, and you wait, and you wait. Now it's 8:30. Eventually it's 9 o'clock, and the person is still not there, and you haven't heard a word from them. Now that is very unprofessional. That is going to get your blood boiling. But if you're expecting this person at 8 o'clock, and maybe slightly before 8 o'clock the person phones you and tells you, sorry, I apologize, I'm going to be late, I'm stuck in traffic. At least you know now. Now you can go and do something else in that time, and you know more or less when this person's going to arrive, guys. So time management is key. If you are busy working on something as well, it's always a good idea to tell the customer how long you think it's going to take, and to try and keep to that schedule as well. So that also falls under customer service and communication skills. So a lot of these skills actually kind of sort of integrate with one another, something you might have noticed by now. So if you think you're going to be late with a project, maybe you're not going to finish on time. So if you said you're going to be done at 4 o'clock and you start seeing, okay, you know what, shucks, this is not going to be finished at 4 o'clock. I'm only going to be finished around 6 o'clock. Tell the customer, the client, sir, ma'am, I apologize, but so far it does not look like I'm going to be done by 4 o'clock. So far it looks like I'm going to be about an hour or 2 hours late. At least once again, they know. So time management is key. Try and keep to the deadlines you specify for yourself. So what I would suggest on that note, guys, is always specify a longer period than what you think something's going to take. So if you're fixing something or troubleshooting something, and based on your experience, if you notice something's going to take an hour, tell the customer or the client it's going to take an hour and a half or 2 hours. That way, if something happens, something unforeseen, you've got a buffer. So if you told the customer it's going to take 2 hours, but you know it's going to take an hour, and now it actually takes an hour and a half, it's still going to be half an hour earlier than what you told them. Meanwhile, it's half an hour longer than what it's supposed to actually take, but you told them 2 hours, and you took an hour and a half. So according to them, you look like sunshine. You look like a rainbow. You look amazing because you said 2 hours, but you finished this in freaking an hour and a half. So to them, you look amazing. But they don't realize that actually you took longer than what you were supposed to. So do not tell them it's going to take an hour if it is going to take an hour. Always give yourself a little bit of buffer room, folks. Otherwise, when the poop hits the fan, you've got absolutely no buffer whatsoever. Alright, and then, folks, collaboration. As a technician, you are not going to be a lone wolf. You will need to work with other people from time to time. Sometimes, these other people are going to be fellow technicians or engineers. So you're going to have to go into a company, a server room, a firewall, and you will have to work in conjunction with a team of other IT people. This could be at your company. So if you are the IT for a company, chances are very likely you're not going to be the only IT person there. You're going to be in charge of something specific. That something specific might have 2 or 3 people working on it. So you might be in charge of, let's say, the firewall. But maybe on this company's firewall, there's 2 or 3 people working on it just because of the sheer amount of work. So there's a very good chance you're not going to be alone in your department. There's a very good chance you're not going to be alone in IT at your company. You need to know how to work with other colleagues. You need to know how to go and share information with them. Help them and have them help you. There's no such thing as somebody in IT that knows everything, and that includes myself, guys. I might have a lot. I've got more than 2 decades of experience, not just in training, but also in the field. But just because I know a lot does not mean I know everything. There's a lot of things out there that I don't know, and I'm not ashamed to mention that. That applies to everybody. That's called being human, folks. If you tell me you know everything, I know you're lying. There's no such thing. So know your limits. Whenever you get to something and you don't know how to fix it, or maybe you've never worked on something specific, you should not be ashamed to ask for assistance. I used to work for an engineering company, and sometimes I'd go out to a client and I'll be able to fix the problem completely on my own. Other times, I would go out to this client, I've got a fairly good idea what the problem is, but the device I've got to go and configure it on, I've got no experience on doing that. So maybe it is a firewall or a switch I've got to go and do configuration on. Now, I've got experience on firewalls and switches, but you get many brands. You get many models. Maybe, this actually was really the case, I used to be a very experienced Cisco professional. But now maybe today, the device I've got to work on is an HP. It's slightly different. I don't have experience of HP. I've only got experience of Cisco. So I know what needs to be done. I just don't know how to do it on this specific make and this specific model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my colleagues who's got experience of HP. I'll plug myself into the device and I'll have them remotely connect to my laptop and then have them configure it after I give them instructions on what I need done. And then later that same afternoon, you'll find that other technician that just assisted me, I've got to assist them now. Now they need assistance of a Cisco device. They know HP, I know Cisco. So earlier today they helped me with HP, now I'm going to help them with Cisco. So it's a classic case, if you scratch my back, I scratch your back. There is no such thing as somebody knows everything. So when I need their help, they help me. When they need my help, I help them. We share and exchange skills and information. So collaboration, folks, is really going to make your life easier. The quicker you learn to work as a team, the better. And then, folks, creativity. As an IT person, you need to be creative sometimes. Now, when I say creative, I don't mean you're going to have to go and draw a picture, guys. We're not going to go and draw or paint a picture. You are going to have to be creative in a sense of ideas you're going to have to come up from time to time. So to give you an idea, I had this client once that had a section of their network that kept going down and up, down and up. So it will be on and off, on and off. So it was weird. It's all the same people. There's about approximately 5 people in the same section of the building. So I thought, okay, what do these guys have in common? Their network cables. So I went into the roof, thinking it maybe it's a rat or something chewing on the cables. It turns out it was not. It turns out their network cables were lying over a power cable, a very huge power cable. This power cable is as thick as my arm. Now, for those of you that don't know what this means, it means that power cable gives off something called EMI, electromagnetic interference. That is something you guys will learn about later in this course. It's not in today's module. That is a topic later in the A+ course. Now, power cables is one of many things in life that give off EMI, electromagnetic interference. Now, when you've got network cables near something like a power cable that gives off EMI, it's going to cause the data to get corrupt. So the users are experiencing those symptoms where the connection goes on and off, on and off. And when they download something huge, it keeps failing. It's very annoying. So to solve this problem, you would need to use a cable that's immune to EMI, or at least somewhat immune to EMI. Something like a shielded twisted pair. You don't have to worry about what that is right now. That gets covered later in the course. Or fiber optic cable, or coaxial cable. There's quite a few cables out there that's immune to EMI. Once again, this gets covered later in the course. Don't worry about that in today's module. It gets covered later in the course. Now, usually, like I said, the solution would be to swap the cable with one that's immune to EMI. Now, we could do that, but I would have to charge the customer labor. I would have to charge them for the cable I have to go and put in. So what I did was I just took a bunch of tin foil, kitchen tin foil that you would find, and I wrapped the cables in that kitchen tin foil, and I grounded it. And guess what? The problem stopped. So instead of having to go and change all those cables, there's approximately 5 cables, that would have costed the customer an insane amount of money in the sense of having the cables replaced and the labor and all that involved. Instead of doing that, I asked them, do you have a kitchen? They said yes. Do you have kitchen tin foil in your kitchen? They said yes. I was like, can I have some? Because it's very affordable. They gave it to me. I went into the roof, wrapped the cables approximately a couple of meters in this kitchen tin foil. Obviously, doing that on its own is not going to work, so I had to ground it. I grounded it, and guess what? Problem got solved. The EMI interference stopped, or at least stopped enough for the problem to go away. I didn't even bother charging them for that. So sometimes in life, guys, you're going to have to be creative. It could be a physical solution, like the one I've just given it to you. It could be a digital solution. But sometimes you're going to have to get creative in IT for something to work. Alright, guys, and then one of the more obvious ones when it comes to skills and abilities is hardware and software knowledge. That's basically just skill and experience, I suppose. So as time goes by, you guys are going to gain more and more experience on both hardware as well as software. The more experience you gain, just like that doctor we spoke about earlier, then you'll see when people start mentioning symptoms to you, you'll kind of already know what the problem is or what the problem could be without even seeing this object, this software or hardware, and without even troubleshooting it. So if they mention to you, for example, the machine just keeps shutting down after 10 minutes or 15 minutes, if they leave it off, and let's say leave it off for 10 or 15 minutes, and then it try again. When it starts back up, you will know that that's a heat issue going forward. That's called experience. It's your knowledge. Now, nobody just woke up magically one morning and knew all of this stuff. Guys, you're going to have to learn this stuff. You're going to have to go and work with the stuff in the field. And that happens, guys. We all start at rock bottom, including myself. It's not just going to happen in one day. There's a very famous saying out there, and it is, Rome was not built in a day. Couldn't be more true. This is not just going to happen overnight, guys. So by you attending this course of mine or a course of somebody else and then practicing this stuff in the real world, you will eventually gain this knowledge. After a couple of months or a couple of years, the more you do this, the quicker you're going to learn this stuff, guys. And obviously at the end of this course, if you feel like you don't remember 90% of what you've learned, that's completely normal, guys. That's called being human. So don't stress about it. Everybody goes through that. So if you, let's say by the end of module 22, you realize, oh, shucks, I only remember like 10% or 20% of what was discussed in this course, that is normal. You'll see as soon as you start going through the questions and stuff, some of that information is going to come back to you. You'll be like, oh yeah, I remember now. It's going to come back to you. Maybe not all of it, but it is going to partially come back to you. So don't stress about it too much, folks. Alright guys, and then one last skill or ability I want to mention to you guys before we conclude this section of the video. This is the end of the first section. That will be network knowledge. So just like of hardware and software, as time goes by, you're going to gain network knowledge. This can be done via attending courses like the Network Plus course, Cisco courses, Huawei courses, but usually network knowledge is gained by, well, just shadowing your peers and working on stuff. So the more you work with the stuff, the more network knowledge you're going to gain, and that's obviously a requirement for a proper IT specialist. If you know hardware, software, networking, then you'll be able to troubleshoot stuff a lot quicker and a lot easier, and you're not going to waste your customer or your client's time. It's just going to make you look more professional. Unfortunately, like I said so many times before already in this video, Rome was not built in a day, guys. Do not feel frustrated if you don't remember everything. It's gonna take some time, guys. Alright folks, we've reached the end of the first section. Before we dive into that second section, there's a game I would like to play with you guys. I normally do this with most of my course videos. So if you're new to the channel, you'll probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But for those of you that's watched my course videos before, you'll probably know what's about to happen. So normally what happens is I'll give you either a code word or a code phrase. And the idea is for you to go and make a sentence down below in the comment section using that code word or that code phrase. Now, why this is fun is because anybody that's just randomly going through the comment section, somebody that hasn't actually watched the video yet, they'll probably get very confused. I mean, yes, you'll get normal IT questions there too. But if they see everybody talking about some word or some phrase, they'll probably wonder, what the heck is going on here? What are all these people talking about? And until they actually watch the video and get to this point in the video, they won't know what the heck is going on. So only people that's actually watched the video up until this point will know what the heck is going on. So it's a bit of an inside joke, if you will. So today, it's not going to be a word, but it's going to be a phrase I'm going to give you. The phrase is, the IT monster stole my cookies. Now you can either go and type the phrase as is down below, but it's usually more fun if you go and rephrase it in a way. Be creative with it, but please stick to YouTube's rules. Don't swear. Don't say anything mean. We don't want the YouTube popo on our case here. So you're welcome to either go and type it as is, or you can go and rephrase it. But basically it comes down to, the IT monster stole my cookies. Now this is going to be very confusing, because if you say IT, especially if you put the word IT in capital letters, that could look like you mean the word it, that movie It, or ET, IT phone home, or ET phone home, So you're definitely going to be confusing people down below. So feel free to go and do it down below. You don't have to, but if you are going to, have fun with it, guys. Right, folks, let's move you into the second main section of this video. And this video only has two, remember that. The second main section is the troubleshooting methodology. Now this concept, guys, this huge topic, has been in A+ for a very long time. Almost all the previous versions of A+ always had this as a topic. And they always ask this a lot in the exam. This is a topic normally gets hammered on in the A+ exam. Now, is this topic still in the 1200 series of the exam? Yes, absolutely it is. CompTIA themselves have confirmed that this is still in the exam. However, there's a couple of changes when it comes to this topic being an exam. So this topic, guys, consists of 6 steps you need to know. In the past, you used to have to know what all 6 steps are. you needed to know in what order they go, and you needed to know what each step entails. So usually in the past, they would tell you, user 1 has done the following, blah, 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 and based on what they say in the exam, you need to know where this user is currently in the troubleshooting methodology. And then they will ask you, what is the next step that you or the user has to take place? So if you, for example, figure out, oh, this user is currently at step 3, then you need to know what step 4 is. And then you will obviously go and answer that in the exam. Now, apparently, according to CompTIA, I can't confirm this just yet because the exam is not released yet. I'll have to go and check it myself. But according to CompTIA, apparently you no longer need to know in what order the troubleshooting methodology is. You still need to know what the 6 steps are. You still need to know what each step entails. But you are not going to be required to know in what order the steps have to take place anymore in the new A+ exam. That's what CompTIA says. Now, I don't trust them on this, so I'm going to tell you guys to rather, be prepared. Let's rather know what order this happens in as well, just to be on the safe side. I do not want you guys to be in the exam in a situation where, oopsie daisy, now suddenly CompTIA changes their mind again, and now you need to know what the order is, but you never really studied for that because, well, CompTIA said it's no longer a requirement. And as we know, CompTIA likes to go and change their mind whenever they feel like it. So I don't trust them in that sense. So let's rather know what the 6 steps are, like in the old days. Let's know what each step entails, and let's know in what order these steps go. So I'm going to teach it like the old school way. Then we know we're safe. And if they happen to change their mind, then, well, we're not going to care because you guys know it anyway. Now, folks, with the troubleshooting methodology, the main thing we're going to be talking about here, as they call it in the past, is best practice methodology, the correct way of doing it. So the CompTIA troubleshooting model, folks, follows as follow. Try saying that 5 times fast. The first step, folks, is to identify the problem. There's going to be 6 steps in total, guys. So I'm going to give you guys a very simple scenario for this so we can go through each step now. So let's imagine someone says the machine does not want to start. I'm going to give you guys that scenario. We've got a pretend user. He or she says their computer does not want to start. Now, like I said earlier in this video, if someone just tells us the machine doesn't want to start, the list of things that can cause that is infinite, guys. It's a very, very, very long list of things that can cause someone's machine not to start. Now, step 1 would be to identify what the problem is. Now, how do we go about doing that, you ask? Well, guys, to identify the problem, one of the most common ways would be to ask questions. Normally, we ask open-ended questions, not closed-ended questions. You can ask those too, but open-ended questions is probably going to be your best bet here. If you don't know what the difference is, an open-ended question, guys, is where you force the user or the customer to give you more than just a one-word answer. So if I ask you a question and all you can say is yes or no, that will probably be a closed-ended question. It's just a one-word answer like a yes or a no or affirmative, that kinds of stuff. But if I ask you something along the lines of, in your opinion, sir or ma'am, when last would you say this machine worked correctly? Or I'm going to phrase this question in such a weird, funky way where I'm going to basically force the user or customer to give me more than just a one-word answer. Now, by asking the user open-ended questions, preferably multiple questions, you can often establish what the problem is or what the problem could potentially be. And that's because of your experience once again. So if I ask the customer, when last did your computer work? And they say, well, it was working fine yesterday afternoon. I turned it off. I went home. I came to the office this morning and it does not want to turn on. All right. Now to them it means nothing. But for us, we've got a time frame now. We know something happened between yesterday afternoon and this morning. Now, if I was still able to log into the machine, I could obviously go and check the event logs in Event Viewer. Now, in this scenario, we cannot start the machine even, so we cannot go and do that. Now, maybe you're lucky. Maybe the customer will mention some extra stuff without even realizing it, kind of like when you go to the doctor once again. They might mention once again, ever since that storm we had last night, or ever since that storm yesterday afternoon, now this morning my PC doesn't want to start. To them it means nothing, but to you that's a gold mine of information. To you, it means that this might be a potential power surge that took place. Maybe the lightning struck the power line somewhere along the line, and now there was a power surge. The power surge knocked out the power supply, maybe something more, but it's usually just the power supply that kicks the bucket, and that is your suspicion. is that the power supply has now kicked the bucket. We call that the PSU for short, Power Supply Unit. That's a little boxy you find inside your desktop case where you plug the power cable into, by the way, in case you guys don't know. More on that later in your A+ course. That's probably going to be in Module 2 or Module 3 somewhere. So that's me identifying the problem. Step 2, folks, is to establish a theory. Now, I kind of accidentally did that already. So my theory, based on what the user says, is that I think there was a power surge. They mentioned there was a storm yesterday. So I think there was a lightning strike somewhere along the line. It probably hit the power line somewhere. There was a power surge, and it most likely broke something in the PC, most likely the power supply. So that's my current theory. It's not confirmed yet. So step 3 is to test that theory of yours. Now, there's many ways you can go about this. Now, considering mine is about a power supply, there's quite a few ways I can do this. I can either go and take out that power supply that I suspect is faulty, and then put a new one in, or a working one in, one that I know for a fact is working. You'll find that often we technicians won't even completely put the new one in. I'll just disconnect the old one, kind of just leave it there inside the case. Take a new power supply, just have it dangling outside the case. Just plug it into the various components like the motherboard and the CPU and maybe your hard drive and stuff like that, graphics card. Just plug it in. I'm just going to have it dangling outside the case. It's just to test if the machine actually turns on. Plug a power cable into that other power supply now. And if the PC starts, well, there you go. Theory confirmed. If it does not start, well, then you know you're incorrect with your theory. You've got to start all over again by step 1 and step 2 now. Now, folks, for the purpose of this demonstration, let's assume the theory was confirmed. After I've plugged in that other power supply now, the new one or the temporary one, the PC does start. Theory confirmed. Now, if your theory is confirmed under step 3, you would move on to step 4, folks, which is to establish a plan of action. You might say, hey, let's just go and replace the power supply. No, it's not always that simple, guys. If you are working as the in-house IT for a company, then chances are you might be able to go ahead and just change this power supply, because normally you'll have a couple of spare ones lying around, or your job is just to get the users back up and running as quickly as possible. But what if you are, for example, a computer store somewhere, maybe a computer store in a mall, and a customer brought their PC to you? Or what if you are an IT company that goes out to various businesses and companies like that, and you realize what the problem is? Can you then just go ahead and willy-nilly change the power supply? No, you cannot, because there's going to be additional costs involved here, guys. So if I'm a computer store, or I'm a technician from one company that goes out to other companies, there's going to be costs involved. I now need to contact this customer, client, or user and tell them, sir, ma'am, I figured out what the problem is. The problem appears to be your power supply. And then you tell them what the next course of action will be. You tell them you're going to replace this or fix this. Now, power supplies, it's always quicker and better and cheaper and safer to go and replace them. So in this scenario, I'm going to tell the customer, sir, ma'am, I figured out the problem here is your power supply. I'm going to have to replace the power supply. That's going to be the quickest, the easiest, and the cheapest solution here. You give them a rough cost estimate as to what it's going to cost, preferably accurate, but if you can't give them an accurate one, just give them a rough one. And then you tell them how long it's going to take to fix this issue of theirs. So you give them a cost breakdown and you give them a time breakdown. The customers wants to know what they're in for. It's once again the same as you taking your car to the dealership. Now, while it's at the dealership, they realize there's something very seriously wrong with it. Now, instead of them just fixing it, wouldn't it be nice if they phoned you first and say, sir, we've realized there's a problem in your car. This is what the problem is. This is how much it's going to cost to fix it. And this is how long it's going to take to fix it. Then you can decide whether you have the money to do this and whether you've got the time to wait that long. So it's just called good customer service. It's customer service, it's communication skills, it's just being professional. So it's a lot of skills that's actually being tested there in that specific point there, guys. So under establishing a plan of action, you inform the customer what the problem is. You inform them what the solution will be. You inform them how much it will cost if there's a cost involved. And you inform them how long it's going to take if there's a time frame involved. Now, once you get the green light to go ahead to go and fix this, and after you fixed it, that will be step 5 we're moving into now, guys. Verify full system functionality. Now, I don't care how many times you've done this in your life. You can tell me, oh, but I've done this 100 times in my life. I don't care. We don't assume as technicians. I don't care if you've done this 100 times or 1,000 times. you test that machine or whatever this is that you just fixed. Test it. Verify that it's working. Once you verify that it's working, because remember, we are human, we do make mistakes, and sometimes even though you might not have made a mistake, something else just happens. Maybe there's a weird bug or a weird glitch or something weird that just went wrong, and now you think it's working, you give it back to the customer or the client or the user, and then it doesn't work and you make a fool of yourself. It's going to make a fool of you, you can look unprofessional, you might potentially lose some business, heck, you might even get sued in some cases. So let's not assume, let's verify. Once you've verified, you get the customer to see this. So like I said earlier, we don't trust the customers. It's always the one you least expect it from. So once you've confirmed the machine is working, whatever this is, you tell them, hey, look, it's working. You show them that it's working. You make them sign for it that it's working. So on this document they sign, on there you will often mention what the initial problem was. You'll mention what steps you took to fix this and what ended up being the final solution or the final problem and all that. And then you mention that the customer has confirmed that it's working and you make them sign for it. Just in case they want to turn around afterwards and say you didn't do this or you didn't do that, or ever since you've worked on this machine, this doesn't work or that doesn't work. It's just to cover your behind. Now folks, the last step in the troubleshooting methodology, step 6. Not all companies and technicians do the last step, but you do need to know this for the exam, and it still actually does help you quite often in real life. That will be to document your findings. So once you've finished everything and the customer's out of your face or the user's out of your face, document your findings. So you'll find some companies might actually force you to do this. The companies I work for did not force me to do this. I just did this on my own account just to help myself out. So whenever I had a problem, which was something I knew, something I've seen a lot of times, I know what the solution is, I would ignore it. But if I had a problem I faced, which was a very new one or a very weird and rare one, and I'm concerned that I might forget what the problem was and what the solution was, I would document that on my own personal notes. And then one day, 6 months or 12 months later, if I see that same weird problem again, chances are I'm not going to remember what the exact issue was. Chances are I'm not going to remember what the exact solution was. And I can now refer back to my notes and I can fix this problem a lot quicker and a lot easier. That's one of the reasons why companies actually make people do this. So it's in case something goes wrong, so they can go back to those notes of yours to see where we went wrong. It can also be used by interns, learnership programs for research purposes. And, in the end of the day, I think the most important thing to mention here is if you ever face that same problem again, you might remember, oh, hang on, I've had this problem before. But you might not remember what the exact issue was and what the exact solution was. Now you can go through your findings in that previous problem and you can see, oh yeah, that's right. The problem last time was X, Y, and Z. And the solution was A, B, C. Now you know you're going to be able to fix this a lot quicker, a lot easier, and you're going to end up looking a lot more professional for it. Alright folks, we have finally reached the end of Module 1 of the CompTIA A+ course. We still unfortunately have a whole 21 more modules to go before we've covered the whole A+ course. I know, it's a lot of content, guys. But at the end of the day, we are covering a whole freaking course here, guys, and it's completely for free. So please give this video a like if you haven't done so already. I do put a lot of effort into these videos for you guys. And if you'd like to know when Module 2 goes live, please consider subscribing, guys. Now guys, before we disappear, just a shout out and a thank you to all the supporters of this channel. Those of you just clicking on the thanks button, below the video if it's available in your country. Those of you buying me a milkshake or a coffee. By the way, all this information is available in the video description down below. So if you'd like to support the channel in some sort of way, you can find that in the video description down below. It's right there with the timestamps and all of that as well. So thank you guys. Those of you making PayPal donations, thank you very much. There's a nice big list of all the PayPal donors. And then the most important ones here, guys, the Patreons. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Patreons, but unfortunately most of them are not on this list because they don't want to be on this list. So if you become a paid Patreon on my Patreon, the list is in the video description down below too, by the way. I will normally ask you, do you want to have your name on this list? And if you say yes, I'll ask you what name you want to have displayed. Alternatively, you can remain anonymous, which is what most people prefer. Don't know why, but most people prefer to be anonymous. Now guys, if you'd like to join my Patreon, the link is in the video description down below. There I normally have additional extra material over and above what is available on YouTube. So feel free to go and check out my Patreon as well, please. Lastly, folks, for those of you that don't know, the channel does have a Discord server. That's going to be the very last link in the video description. So if you check in the video description, the very last link, the channel does have a Discord server. It's called Free IT Training. Alternatively, you can just run a search for it. So if you are in Discord server, at the bottom left, if you click there on the search or find, if you run a search for Free IT Training, you'll find it as well. Free IT Training. It's a community of IT people such as yourself, such as me, studying for A+, N+, Security Plus, as well as many other courses. So if you've got any questions, you can ask them there, and there's bound to be someone that's going to be able to answer you, including myself. Or if you'd like to assist other people, or you just want to show off, you can also go and join a server for that. So it's basically a community of like-minded people doing the same thing. So feel free to go and check that out as well. It's a free community, so why not? Alright folks, I will see you in Module 2 of the CompTIA A+ course.